Well, it's finally happened, or maybe it hasn't quite happened. It being the departure of Elon Musk from the Donald Trump White House. There was a judicial election, of all things, in the state of Wisconsin, which Musk got very, very involved with, spent a lot of money on, but the candidate that he was backing on behalf of Donald Trump lost. So is that the end of Elon Musk as a political force? Might he soon be on his way out of the White House? Welcome to Americast.
Americast from BBC News.
Hello, it's Justin in the worldwide headquarters of Americast in London, England.
And it is Mariana, a.k.a. Misinformation, sitting next to Justin in the worldwide headquarters.
And it's just us. No interruption.
The worldwide headquarters
from the United States. They're such a nuisance, those people, with their knowledge and their facts.
Joking.
Now, look, we're going to be talking a bit later on about the big announcement this week, of course, on tariffs. And I'm going to be talking to E.J. Antoni, who is an economist for the Heritage Foundation. And we've chosen the Heritage Foundation and EJ because they're a conservative think tank. They're very closely aligned with Donald Trump and with his policies. So what we want to explore with them is what's the end game? What's he trying to do? Which I think is something that in all the kind
Did he know that board would get so
mean?
Did
he know that the board
with
would
all
be
the tariffs on it?
Does he really want
That's
to?
the important question.
Does he really think the Falkland Islands is the threat that he seems to think it is because of the tariff that the Falklands are having to cope with and various other smaller parts of the world? All those kind of things that I think, to an extent, obviously, there is an overall picture that you sort of get, and we have talked a bit about the rebalancing of trade, but it just feels as if there are so many questions about the way that he's going about it. So, as previously mentioned, we are talking about Elon Musk today, which means once again we've got to use this.
Elon!
That's right, it's the Elon klaxon, the Elon Musk klaxon, because we're talking about him again, and we're actually talking about him in quite a lot of depth today. And we're talking about him not just because of some rumours and briefing that the White House have denied, but I think that sparks an interesting discussion about what's going to happen next with Elon Musk and Donald Trump, but specifically about what's been happening in Wisconsin and this whim for the Democrats in a state election, which Elon Musk was very much positioned on the other side of in terms of his donations and some of the other stuff he was doing. What actually has happened now, Justin? Because we actually chatted about this in the Q&A a bit.
Yeah.
Because Elon Musk was like giving people these big checks, incentivizing them to get involved in the democratic process. He would say, his detractors would argue he was trying to bribe people. He would say no. That's
right. So we had a question when we were doing our Q&A about him handing out money to people and whether that was legal. And the answer is and was that it is legal, it seems, in the sort of circumstances in which he does it. And it's certainly legal to spend a ton of money. And he was also spending a ton of money in Wisconsin. Why was he doing it? Because there's this weird thing in Wisconsin where they have elections for the Supreme Court, the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and they're highly politicized. The judges, highly politicized. They don't even pretend that they're anything other than politically committed people. And that's on both sides. So Brad Schimmel was the Republican candidate who Musk was going for. And there's a woman called Susan Crawford on the Democratic side. And they were going, and it's a statewide election. Normally, I mean, seriously, people voted last year.
People get involved.
They're interested in cheese or whatever else they do in Wisconsin.
I'm sure the Wisconsies would.
There's a ton of stuff in Wisconsin to get on with, and the idea that this election was going to be important would not have been on anyone's radar 6 months ago, a year ago. But suddenly it became hugely important for one big reason, and that is that there is going to be redistricting in Wisconsin, potentially. So the boundaries of the congressional districts altered, and that could be a gain for the Democrats of maybe a couple of seats. And when you think how balanced the House of Representatives is in Washington, D.C., those couple of seats could really matter. And that is why Musk and the Republicans spent an absolute fortune on trying to get their candidate in, because those things can be blocked in the Supreme Court or approved in the Supreme Court. And that's equally why the Democrats spent a lot of money trying to get their woman in, and why it's so important to the Democrats that she won, because potentially it does open the door for things to happen. It's not just about winning a race. It's actually the things that could happen as a result of winning that race. And that's why so there was so much focus on it, an absolute ton of money, more money spent on this judicial race than any other in American history. More money and more interest in it, more nationalizing of it in terms of news coverage, and all of it ending in a Democratic victory, which I think is in itself interesting. We might talk about a bit later on. But for Musk, ending in a defeat.
Very much so. And actually, we've got this clip of the moment that the Democrat-backed judge, Susan Crawford, like you mentioned, announced that she'd won.
Just moments ago, I received a phone call from Judge Brad Schimmel conceding the race. As a little girl growing up in Chippewa Falls, I never could have imagined that I'd be taking on the richest man in the world. For justice in Wisconsin. And we won.
So interesting, because she's directly referencing Elon Musk there, who has turned up in Wisconsin. He was personally handing people these big checks we were talking about for $1 million to voters in particular. Part of one of these schemes, again, we were discussing, where he kind of attempts to incentivize people to take part in the process, which is why people have questions about it. But I think there's this thing that's so interesting here, which is when he did this during the election, and when he kind of turned up and was seen to be so closely allied with Donald Trump and the Republican Party, I guess, more generally, or certainly bits of the Republican Party, the Make America Great Again MAGA bit, it kind of was effective, I guess, because there was a captive audience who were looking to get engaged, and who felt like they needed to and wanted to. They felt that like real push to take part. And you saw that certainly from my point of view in terms of the social media conversation that was happening, not just on X, which Elon Musk owns, but everywhere. There are a lot of people who felt like seemed to feel like they really wanted a change, and that change for them was Donald Trump. And so it was almost like Elon Musk was working with a pretty captive crowd. Now I guess you're in a different situation, which is people who voted for Donald Trump are seeing him do all the stuff he's doing, tariffs and everything else, and perhaps maybe don't feel as energized in the way that you might imagine that some Democratic voters who are worried about what Donald Trump's doing do kind of feel energized. And so then you wonder does the power of Elon Musk wear off? Like, is it actually not as valuable, or is it actively a turn-off, which is kind of interesting?
Because he's also doing what he does. And never mind what Donald Trump's doing. Elon Musk has got his own thing with DOGE, with his effort to save a ton of money from the federal budget. And it's, there are people who still support it, but equally a lot of people have been put out of work by it. And that matters.
Well, and that's kind of interesting as well, because if we think about the evolution or transformation of Elon Musk, even compared to back in the autumn, at that point, the Department of Government Efficiency, which he is involved in running, this kind of advisory team board, that didn't exist in the same way. He hadn't kind of acted on some of those changes, like the cuts that they were suggesting, the redundancies, everything else. He was kind of like a theoretical figure, I guess, like someone who had succeeded in generating a huge amount of conversation about Donald Trump, particularly on X, and the kind of impact of X, a small platform that still has a sort of mighty influence, it seems, on political conversations and discussions. That there was kind of all of that going on. But I guess like a lot of people didn't really know what Elon Musk meant necessarily. And now they kind of do a bit more. Like, they've seen him at the White House with his kid, with Donald Trump. They've seen him like at a cabinet meeting with his dark Gothic MAGA cap on. And so aside from this point about are people just not maybe as energized to go out and get involved from a Donald Trump Republican point of view, because they're thinking, well, I kind of got what I wanted and I'm seeing how it unfolds. There's also this question of, actually, are there people who don't like the way Elon Musk has gone about what he's done, or have questions about whether they still like him being allied with Donald Trump in that way?
So we got a question from David Hatton in Preston, who says, hi, I love the podcast. Are the rumours true? Has Trump decided to let Elon Musk go from DOGE? And this then comes as a result of, or these rumours swirling around come as a result of, obviously, the Wisconsin election. But there is this wider thing as well, which you've just been alluding to, which is some of the things that Elon Musk has been doing are obviously have caught people's attention and not necessarily in a good way. So what are you seeing, hearing about how dicey his position is?
So this reporting actually came from Politico on Wednesday morning, US time. This idea that Donald Trump was telling his inner circle Musk is going to be stepping aside from his role in the coming weeks. That was the kind of wording, the phrasing. So you've got, I guess, this layer of media speculation, which was very, very quickly shut down. So the White House came out to say, this is Caroline Leavitt, their press secretary, this scoop is garbage. She posted on X, where else? Elon Musk and President Trump have both publicly stated Elon will depart from public service as a special government employee when his incredible work at DOGE is complete. And Elon Musk actually himself had quote tweeted that and said, this is fake news, like it's not true. And it's worth saying as well, just on Wisconsin, he also posted about that on X, Musk, saying, I expected to lose, but there is a value to losing a piece for a positional gain. So this idea that somehow it's important for his wider image, perhaps. Yeah.
What's the positional gain?
Who knows? But then I think what's interesting is...
think what the positional gain is of losing a lot of money on a race in Wisconsin. But anyway, maybe, he is cleverer than me, so what the heck.
Yeah, and so you've got this kind of wider media speculation, and it's something that we've all been talking about quite a lot. But then if you look at the undercover voters, drum roll, who
are they?
We should maybe have a klaxon for them. My fictional characters with social media profiles across the main sites. If you look at kind of the perception of Elon Musk, perhaps in those circles, I mean, a lot of the pro-Donald Trump the two pro-Donald Trump profiles that I run, they're still getting lots of stuff that's broadly favourable to him. So I don't think that has changed, like the level of support for Elon Musk from the kinds of people that like Donald Trump necessarily. And this is just a litmus test from social media feeds, not a poll or anything like that. But if you think about the other side, and if I look at the accounts that don't like Trump, there is a lot more anger about Elon Musk in those circles and kind of general discontent and upset about his position. And you wonder whether this is about the kind of tipping balance of your favourite undercover voter, apolitical Gabriella. Her feed is starting to kind of go a bit like, ooh, not so sure about Musk's involvement here. Pro-Donald Trump, like still quite pro-Donald Trump stuff and stuff about the economy and stuff about immigration.
Really?
But a little bit more...
Scapegoating of him then?
Yeah, just like a little bit more like I don't know, there's less favourable stuff towards him. And you just wonder if that kind of discontent is starting to bleed across a little bit.
I find that really interesting because obviously the Democrats want to blame, well, you heard Susan Crawford there specifically mentioning Elon Musk and wanting him to be right in the spotlight. And they love the fact that he lost this election, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What I think is more interesting in a way is exactly what you just hinted at, which is that Republicans also might find it convenient to blame Elon Musk for this election loss in Wisconsin, but also more widely for things that might be unpopular, and we're going to talk about tariffs later on, in the first few months of the Trump administration. And if there's someone handy to blame who is a bit of a kind of blameworthy figure, then
and quite dispensable, really.
Yeah, quite dispensable. You can see politically how it's not just the Democrats who go for Musk, but actually quite a lot of Republicans as well, including Republicans inside the White House. And
it's worth us saying, and we chatted about this when we were kind of making some predictions around what might happen and whether there might be a falling out between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. See, what's quite interesting is at the moment, it doesn't feel necessarily like there's been a falling out. It's much more what you've described, which is it tactic? What is the strategic or tactical decision which is most beneficial to Donald Trump and the White House and the presidency? And at the beginning, they never have specified exactly when, like for how long Elon Musk was going to be involved with DOGE, this department, this, Department of Government.
Wasn't it something sort of vague, like when the work is done?
When it's done, exactly, which is like, how long is a piece of string? What does that actually mean? Does that mean that he's made the changes and the cuts, but then he goes before the kind of ramifications of those changes?
And we should say about DOGE that the DOGE process, if I can use that phrase, is not something that ends with a report that says X, Y, or Z happens. It's iterative and daily, and people are losing their jobs daily. Stuff's being torn up, chucked daily. So you might feel that after any amount of money, and whether it's a real amount or a made-up amount or a slightly made-up amount, after it's saved, you could say, my work here is done if you're Elon Musk.
Yeah, and if you're Donald Trump, you could, in theory, wait until the perfect moment where it's gone on long enough that maybe, you maybe start to feel some of the ramifications. And if they're good, then you say, okay, great, thanks for your work, goodbye. And if they're not good, then you say,
declare
okay,
victory.
Goodbye.
Move on.
You need to go now. And actually, Donald Trump did say to reporters this week about Elon Musk, he's got a big company to run. At some point, he's going to go back. So there is this kind of drip feeding of, it's never been denied that he would go back, but the coming weeks thing seems to be the thing that's been disputed. Or hang on a second, that's not imminently about to happen. Also interesting is this point about how, because Musk is a special government employee in his role, like he's not like an elected politician in the same way as the others, which is what a lot of people take issue with, and some people love. It means that his service is limited to 130 days a year.
Oh.
So there is a kind of limit. I guess that could be spread out, couldn't it, in theory? I'm not quite sure how you work that out.
I'm sure the Trump administration would find a way of getting around that rule. They got
or
around
just
a few
like his
others.
timesheet. I've spent this amount of time tweeting on X, and I spent this amount of time running Doge.
Yes. I think they probably could get around that. But on the other hand, I mean, again, it could be an excuse, a very handy excuse, saying, no, we can't get around that. He's got to go. There we are. That's the end of the matter. So, yeah. But are they going to have a great falling out publicly? I don't think either of us think they are.
No, and I think probably at the moment, at least, that remains unhelpful for both of them. Because for Donald Trump, he's still very much, and you hear it in so many of the interviews or sound bites or presses or whatever else he gives, he's really still embracing the kind of alternative media, as you might call it, and social media kind of realm. And Elon Musk is seen as the kind of symbol of that. And I don't think anytime soon he's planning to forsake being a part of that world. It's just to what extent he wants Elon Musk to be kind of directly involved in politics. And just the same from an Elon Musk point of view. I mean, we're also thinking about the implications of all of this for him. There have been a lot of reports about the financial implications for Tesla of some of this stuff, not just political decisions, but Elon Musk himself and what that's, I don't know, the share price dropping and what he's going to do about that. It might end up being beneficial for him in some way to say, okay, I'm a bit separate from you now. He might decide to latch onto a different topic and be more interested in that than he is. I mean, he's very into politics right now, but if you look at and if you listen to the Elon Musk profile that we did as part of our mini-series on Americast, he's frequently sort of chosen something to almost obsess over, and then he kind of moves on when he feels that is done or completed or he wants to do something else. So that feasibly could happen. He's very into space and Mars. Maybe he kind of hops on that, gets away from Doge, does a bit more of that kind of thing. Who knows? Okay, our firm answer to the question, is Elon Musk moving on, is maybe. That's all we've got time for. All the other episodes, of course, are on BBC Sounds. Goodbye.